Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Thursday morning edition of the PHLY Eagles podcast. Bo Wolf here, sitting next to Zach Berman, a man who has an extra pep in his step after everybody has pointed out on Twitter last night, a big game at Citizens Bank Park. The first pitch thrown out by your girl, Danielle Fishel. Congratulations.
Topanga, for those who don't know. I received those messages. And
it was crazy. You got to work today. You just floated through this window up on the top of this building.
I was pumped to come in and do the show with you. We didn't do a show yesterday.
Because you had to go to make sure you got there early to be front row to watch Topanga.
No, I was doing work yesterday. But
with Topanga.
No, not at all. I was at Eagles practice. Well, they didn't practice yesterday. I was in the locker room. I was at the press conferences. I was writing a story that you can find now on allphly.com. I was doing some other work and
eating your Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
I missed doing the show with you. I've been getting used to this daily cadence, right? It was a little shock to the system the first 2 weeks, and now I'm getting used to it. So then when we don't do a show, it's like I need my bow fix.
Don't we all?
Don't we all?
Well, we've got a lot to get to on this show. We're going to hear from Zach about the news and notes from yesterday. We're going to have our second draft of the split teams, see if I can repeat my performance in dominating that. And then we're going to hear from Brian Baldinger later in the show, talk about the domination that the Eagles have had along the line of scrimmage. But Zach, what is the feedback you have gotten from the people in your life over the backseat Wawa parking lot fiasco?
The feedback, honestly, is that I walked myself into it. Yeah, I think that's what my wife said, and like, what were you thinking even bringing that up? Why? Why wouldn't you just say you stopped at Wawa, you had breakfast, you got to the studio, you came and did the show, you didn't have to, and leave it to me, someone who doesn't like to share anything personal.
I like the comment that said, poor Zach, he's on 2 hours sleep. He's made the travel from Tampa. He gets subjected to this nonsense, and he plays along. He's a good sport.
Yes, well, that's part of doing the show with you. It was more of a shock to the system back in 2019 when we started doing a show together. But
I thought it was weird that today that you just started changing out in the open. But
by 2021, I kind of got used to it. Last year, I think it was like, all right, you're a little too tough on me, Bo. And now I'm kind of at the point where I'm leaning into it. We're leaning into the show. We're doing it, and so I say I just got to wear it and own it. Sometimes fire back and sometimes move on to football.
All right, well, let's move on to football for now because we do have a lot to get to. So yesterday, Eagles back in action. As you said, they didn't practice. They had a walkthrough, but you had a chance to talk to Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts and some other guys in the locker room. What were sort of the big takeaways? And I know you wrote about this on allphly.com.
So one thing that jumps out to me is the way defenses are playing the Eagles that has caught attention. We heard in the first 2 weeks the term unscouted looks. What I heard yesterday was exotic looks, and that's what Dallas Goedert said. He said the first 3 games of the season are the most exotic looks that they've seen, and that he thinks they're going to see kind of more conventional NFL looks going forward here. It is true, Nick Sirianni was asked about the amount of blitzing that they've seen so far. And he says he thinks that's the byproduct of the defensive coordinators that they face, not necessarily kind of how teams have gone after them. Depending on where you look, Jalen Hurts has seen the second most blitzes in the NFL this year after Justin Herbert. It's at 51. Pro Football Focus has it at a different number. Pro Football Reference has 51. But by comparison, he was blitzed 32 times through the first 3 games last season. Now, the thing that I want to emphasize here is that he saw almost the fewest amount of blitzes against Washington last year. I think he saw 10 total blitzes in 2 games against Washington. So if Washington comes out and they start blitzing, then you say, all right, this is how teams want to play them. If Washington kind of sticks to the way they've played the Eagles in the past, you say this is because they played against Bill Belichick and Brian Flores and Todd Bowles, which is kind of the way Nick Sirianni attributed it.
Well, you do kind of wonder how they chart it, because for Washington, they might not call it a blitz. This is a Jack Del Rio defense. They may call it a storming, but I think that's just something to keep in mind.
You had that one in the holster, didn't you?
It occurred to me as you were talking about the charting.
So the way, I mean, I think our listeners know this and our viewers know this, but I want to make sure everyone feels included here. The way it's charted is if 5 or more players rush the quarterback, right?
Sure, and then you'll get a defensive coordinator may, or a coach may object to that because it's, you say it's a green dog or something like that, which is when there's a linebacker who comes in to fill because there's not somebody else in protection, right?
Exactly.
Or there isn't somebody in protection.
So that's like, the old expression that statistics, can be deceiving, right? Sometimes they reveal.
Yeah.
So they're suggestive, revealing. And in any event,
to pang on the mind again.
That's one thing that came to mind yesterday. As far as injuries go, the 3 big injuries to watch, the guys who did not practice, or who would not have practiced had the Eagles practiced, Justin Evans, Sidney Brown, and Quez Watkins. That Quez Watkins injury continues to linger. He's missed the past 2 games. We'll continue to monitor that. Alameda Zacchaeus played well as the 3rd receiver last week, and Britton Covey's on the active roster, and they obviously elevated Devin Allen last week. Part of that was for kick return duties, and Boston Scott is back at practice. But I want to emphasize the safeties here because the Eagles only have 4 safeties on the roster, and Sidney Brown and Justin Evans both. If they're both sidelined, the Eagles will be undermanned there. Already have been undermanned. They've been using Sidney Brown to help in the slot, so that's something we can get into. And then just the last thing with injuries that I'll point out, Landon Dickerson's fine. I spoke to him yesterday. He's going to play Sunday. He would have been a full participant in practice, so nothing to be concerned about there. I know some fans were curious after he left the game with a knee contusion.
So the safety thing is interesting because with no Avonte Maddox, you're also down sort of your emergency safety. So if both of those guys can't go, I mean, you're talking about maybe elevating Tristan McCollum from the practice squad and seeing if, Keely Ringo can take snaps there, or Eli Ricks. Like, what do you do?
Well, just what you said, right, is that I think this is where you try to cross-train someone like Ringo, like Ricks. There was talk in the pre-draft process that Ringo might be like a safety long-term. I think they obviously want to see him as an outside corner, but certainly something to watch. They don't have a lot of depth there. And you mentioned Tristan McCollum, who they can elevate from practice squad. But today's injury report is going to be very interesting because Thursdays are usually a good indicator. If a guy's limited on Thursday, if they were out Wednesday, limited on Thursday, they're progressing. If they don't practice on Thursday, sometimes that can be a concern. So pay attention to those 2.
Well, especially a guy like Sidney Brown, like a rookie. If he's not practicing, he's probably not going to play. Whereas like a Justin Evans, you could see potentially he could suit up and maybe just be the backup on game day. If you were somebody who had the Eagles keeping Kayvon Wallace on the 53-man roster instead of Mario Goodrich, I would say that the way that the first 3 weeks have played out would probably mean that you were correct in retrospect because they could use an extra safety, and the guy who they kept as the backup nickel played 1 game and then was inactive all of a sudden. So I think if you were somebody like that, you could probably stake a good claim to having won that title.
I don't know anyone like that. Oh, you're talking about you.
I did do that. But
it always comes back to Bo. Always.
I know.
Right?
I was just saying as a general thing. I actually forgot that
Howie
was
Roseman sitting that way with his executive.
I think it's more that way.
Well, it's that way, and then you go right on 95 and go that way, right? So I think
it's closer to that way than it is to that way.
No, south is that way. North is that way. West is that way. East is that way.
No, that's south.
I got to figure out the orientation of the building. I think that's south. I think behind us is south, correct? Thank you. Chris, our ace social media man, tells us that I was correct.
We're going to need a compass to really make sure this is right.
So Howie Roseman's sitting there in his office. He's got an executive of the year award trophy. He's the executive of the year trophy on his mantle that I know he has. I don't know if it's on his mantle, but I know he has it. And you're sitting here.
That is south. That is east. Look out the window.
Where's the river? The river will be east.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I got to figure out the orientation of the building still. We're 3 weeks into this, but my interpretation based on is I'm kind of in line with Chris here. So
sound off in the comments if you think that direction is south or that direction is south.
In any event, you're saying that you know more about putting a 53-man roster together than Howie Roseman.
I think the Casey Toohill fiasco probably bears that correct. But
okay.
yeah, I don't think I know more, but I think that doesn't mean that they're right every single time. They're prone to be incorrect sometimes.
Sometimes correct.
You think everything they do because the fact that they did it makes it right?
No.
Trading a sixth for a guy who was drafted in the 7th round a month
you
prior and him never making the team. That was
hung-
definitely a good move.
You are so hung up on Kerry Vincent Jr.
I'm just saying, you're allowed to get some stuff wrong.
I don't think
the
Howie
best general manager in the league probably is allowed to not be 100%. I think this was probably one very small mistake.
True. And by the way, watching that Cardinals-Cowboys game, Kayvon's making some plays.
And Miro Goodrich is sitting on the bench
When they need a slot
receiver. So
you are correct.
okay. Well, speaking of me being correct, let's move our attention to the draft, Zach. And after a resounding victory last week, we go ahead again with the split squad draft. Now, we've been discussing whether we should rotate who goes first, whether it should be last week's loser who gets to pick who goes first. I think we should just stick with the rock, paper, scissors. Does that sound good?
If you say so.
All right, 2 out of 3. Ready?
Okay.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. My scissors beats your paper. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Your paper beats my rock. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
You know
the
I'll stick with
scissors
paper.
goes back,
Boom.
and I get the first pick, and I have no choice here but to absolutely take Jalen Hurts as the first overall pick. I think there's definitely a pretty big delta here between Jalen Hurts and Sam Howell. You don't have to draft Sam Howell; you'll just sort of get him. But what are your general thoughts on Sam Howell? We've talked enough about Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I liked him better at North Carolina than in Washington.
Oh, shots fired! Gosh.
No, I think that he's. I thought the first 2 games he showed some promising signs. I thought week 3 was obviously a step back for him. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's fair to say.
I'm perplexed by the whole Sam Howell thing. For those who were not kind of chronicling Washington season last year or following Washington season, they were going back and forth between Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke.
Yeah, I mean, they've handled this thing like
Okay.
the rudderless franchise that they are. But
Then they get eliminated. And in week 18, they
plays one game.
They play Sam Howell. And it wasn't as if Sam Howell had like
right.
7 touchdown Nick
Yeah,
Foles
it was like a
performance.
very
Yes.
like below average game
Yes.
from an NFL starting quarterback.
But if you follow like what the Washington staff was saying
Right.
there, it was as if
this is our guy.
Sam Howell had this performance
Right.
that was like so good that you need to go into next year.
And there are
with-
so many things that like they both can't be true. Like if Sam Howell was so good in that game that he must be the starting quarterback before, then you should probably get rid of the coaching staff that let him sit for the first 17 games,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And if you were actually going to, take into account what his likely level is going to be, you probably should. I mean, now Jacoby Brissett is probably a better quarterback than Sam Howell, but I understand you see what you can get. But yeah, the fact that they just handed him the job on a team that should have like a playoff caliber defense,
Yeah.
right, and some interesting receivers to throw
Sure.
to. Yeah, it's a bit of an odd situation.
Now, I will say Eric Bieniemy's done better there than Scott
Yeah.
Turner, and excuse me, he's infused some life into that offense. Nonetheless, not a big Sam Howell guy, and I think maybe that's a team that was thinking that you see what you have here. It's a good quarterback draft. The top quarterback prospect is from Washington, D.C. Perhaps that's a new ownership group. I know you're probably excited for that storyline. So we'll see how that transpires. But I'm not a big Sam Howell guy going into the season.
I think he can be okay. Just from what I've seen, he's not a disaster. I think it's a 3-game sample, so the numbers are a little bit all over the place. But just to sort of run them down, he's 29th of 34 quarterbacks in EPA per dropback, but 15th in completion percentage and 17th in yards per attempt. He's actually doing okay against the blitz, 9th in EPA against the blitz. He is holding the ball the 10th longest of qualifying quarterbacks. And then the one thing that is sort of an outlier is that only Anthony Richardson has thrown a lower percentage of his passes at least 20 yards downfield than Sam Howell. So not a ton of big play hunting from the Ham Man.
From the Ham Man?
Yeah, I don't know. Just coming up with a name on the
He
fly.
doesn't eat steak or
Ham
fish.
Sowell. Yeah.
He only eats chicken. That's the only meat that he eats. Did you know that?
What's the reason behind that?
His preferences.
Oh, okay. Well, that'll cover it then.
Yes.
All right.
He's so. I don't
What's
think
the
he
reason
eats.
behind that? That's what he decided.
I don't think he eats ham. I just think from my research on him, he.
Oh,
only,
I'm saying ham because I'm doing the spoonerism. Ham Sowell would be if you flipped the.
Oh, you see, I did not put that together.
Oh yeah, well that's on you.
All right.
Okay.
The spooner.
All right, you get 2 picks here, Zach.
Okay. With the first pick, I'm taking Jamison Crowder. No.
I was hoping you were going to take Jamison
That
Crowder.
was a joke.
That's good.
That was
That's
a
good.
joke.
No, touch move.
I was going to warn you there that I had a joke with the first pick, but
Well, it's always good to warn them that you have a joke coming. That's classic comedy behavior.
so I am taking Lane Johnson.
Okay.
Okay. And I am taking Jordan Mailata.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I don't like either of these Washington tackles very much. And I want to have 2 strong tackles against the edge rushers.
Okay, I think that's reasonable. I will return serve by, I think you can make a case that both of these teams, you're maybe a little bit less worried about the edge than you are the interior. I'm going to take Jason Kelce as my starting center.
Okay. I am taking Landon Dickerson as
You've
my
learned your
starting
lesson
guard.
from last week. After
Yeah.
getting pummeled up front, you have decided to make sure that you fortify your line of scrimmage. I respect that. Instead of just sort of chasing the 5th offensive lineman here, even though you will have a better offensive line, I'm going to make sure that I get the edge at wide receiver. I will take A.J. Brown.
Okay. I just want to point something out to our listeners. And in addition to this being a fun game for us to play, the exercise also kind of shows the 2 rosters. And we're dealing with teams here that last week in Tampa Bay, this week in Washington, that have inferior rosters. There's some weeks when that delta might not be as pronounced. I will say, and I pointed this out to you while we were in it's not even the green room, just in the office, that
The changing room.
I like every single position on the Eagles' offense better than Washington's. Like the Eagles' depth chart is so much better on offense than Washington's.
Yeah, it's hard to ignore that.
Yeah.
The other beauty of this game, Zach, is that it allows us a sort of a natural opportunity to talk about the players that
Yes.
we're drafting. So, if you have anything else to say about A.J. Brown, I think we're good on him.
Yeah.
But just as we move along, it's a
especially
nice,
when we draft Washington.
a
players.
well-designed game.
So I actually like Washington's wide receivers here. I'm not gonna. I mean, if you took Devontae, it wouldn't be like the end of the world for me next. Although I do think Devontae's better than both Washington's guys. But I'm going to take Landon Dickerson. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to take Cam Jurgens to make sure that I now have 2 strong tackles, 2 strong guards. I'm going to end up with Gates at center at some point. Do I just get him or do I have to draft him?
You have to draft him.
Okay, so I will draft him at some point here. Good story.
Now,
about-
I think I want to talk to Baldy about this, and so we don't have to talk about it too much. But I've been impressed with Cam Jurgens through the first 3 weeks. I think he looks very good.
Agreed. And Nick Sirianni said the same thing yesterday. And one thing that stood out too is like the power, the size was supposed to be kind of the knock on Cam Jurgens, and that has not been an issue I found in watching them. Certainly, Brian Baldinger knows more there, and we'll hear from him. But through these first 3 games, I haven't watched it and been like, man, he's just overpowered by that defensive tackle.
Yeah, and of course, like sort of the Stoutland of it all, how they all move the same way, and they're not missing assignments. It's fun to watch. I do wish that we could get an actual line on the game between the 2 of us with these rosters, but there are other lines you can get, and those are on DraftKings Sportsbook. We are back with another week of football, and DraftKings Sportsbook is keeping us in on the NFL action with great offers every single game day. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Throw $5 down on any of this week's epic matchups to walk away an instant winner. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. all customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. What's the line on tonight's game, Zach?
I was just pulling that up. Great minds think alike. The Lions are on DraftKings Sportsbook are 2-point favorites over the Packers.
In Green Bay?
In Green Bay, yeah.
Interesting. I kind of like the Packers there. But,
so then you might want to go with Green Bay plus 110 tonight.
It's a 2-point spread and it's only plus 110?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Football is more fun when you're in on the action. So download the app now and sign up with code PHLY. New customers can bet just $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. With code PHLY, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles in Louisiana. 21 and older, age varies by jurisdiction, void in ONT. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. All right, Zach. I will, in fact, since you have this edge at the offensive line, I will take Devontae Smith and give my passing game a nice boost. It seems like we're setting up for the inverse of the way things played out last week, and I still feel pretty good about things.
So I know that you can have more than 2 receivers on the field, and I don't want to box myself out there because I've learned from game theory here that if I took a different position, then you take Terry McLaurin or you take
most likely,
or you take Jahan Dotson, and I'm in a tough spot. So I'm going to take Terry McLaurin here just to make sure that I have someone for Sam Howell to throw the ball to for my team.
Okay, you like a Terry McLaurin? I sort of go back and forth on whether I think he's overrated or underrated because it's like everyone is always talking about how underrated he is.
Yeah.
Because he's always played with bad quarterbacks, and like he is awesome. You know, he is sort of done better against Darius Slay than most opposing wide receivers over the past 2 years. But I also sort of think like if he was a super duper star, he might be able to overcome those bad quarterbacks.
I see your point there. I think that he's kind of, I don't want to say hit his ceiling. I think he's a good, productive wide receiver who may be like, this is what he is.
Right.
He's
already like 28.
Which
right?
is really good, yeah. Now, quick Terry McLaurin Eagles story is, I think back to the owners' meetings 2022 when Jeffrey Lurie was talking about the J.J. Arcega-Whiteside pick. And it was between Arcega-Whiteside and Paris Campbell. And he said that, and of course, we all missed the obvious pick, and we thought he was going to say DK Metcalf, and instead he says Terry McLaurin. I thought that was,
and I think that's because Metcalf was medically red flagged.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, interesting. All right, I'm going to go ahead and take what I think is one of the biggest deltas in this matchup, and that is tight end. Give me Dallas Goedert. So now I have the Eagles' top 3 receivers and the Eagles' quarterback. We're going to have to figure out the offensive line, but I feel pretty good about Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert.
And that's who I was considering going with here. And so I need to make sure that I take Jahan Dotson here just to ensure that you don't add that your passing game is not A.J. Devontae Dotson and Dallas Goedert. And that's for longtime listeners. You can appreciate that I'm still not at Professor Selman's game theory level, but I'm getting better.
Okay. Now, I go back and forth here. I am going to pivot to the defense. And I think the move here is that while there are some like mega horses inside, I think the big difference at an important position is give me Darius Slay. I'm not worried about your passing game, but I'm especially not worried if I have Darius Slay here. I think that Darius Slay, and this is probably one of like the 2 or 3 things I've ever been wrong about in my entire life, was sort of the Darius Slay trade and how things have played out.
Yeah. I'm trying to think who liked that move.
Not you. You didn't love it.
I liked it.
Well, you can't just be tepid on everything and then take credit for it.
I mean, this is all documented, by the way. You can go back and read. And I actually think back in 2020, you and Sheil Kapadi, our former co-host,
well, I mean, Darius Slay
he
continues to beat the odds. He continues to
not if you saw it going this way.
Well, those are not the odds. The odds have played out well for him. But I continue to be very impressed. I think he's playing at a very high level. And this is a guy he's 32 now. You sort of expect the drop-off to come. He's like one of the only 2 starting cornerbacks in the league that old, but I think he looks very good right now. He's playing at a high level.
Agreed there. We have Baldy coming up in a few minutes here. I'm sure this name's going to come up. I'm going to take DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift is number 2 in the league in rushing, even though he only had 1 carry in week 1. So he's averaging over 6 yards a carry. He's been outstanding for the Eagles. I have this offensive line that he's running behind. If you think that it's a product of the Eagles' offensive line, then I do need offensive playmakers. Swift is up there. And real quick, I have a question for you because this was actually the first question in Nick Sirianni's press conference yesterday, which was, what did you make of Kenny Gainwell being on the field in the fourth quarter? DeAndre Swift's last carry came with about 2.5 minutes left in the third quarter. And then they actually had that long drive, and it was all Gainwell. Anything to it, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think the game was out of hand, and you might as well rest the guy who has a bit of an injury history. I thought this was like much ado about nothing. What about you? Yeah.
Now if it's the injury history thing, that's one thing. If it's more that they view it like Kenny Gainwell's more trustworthy, we keep hearing that he can play in those situations, can secure the ball. Just something to think about with the roles going forward. I think it's very clear DeAndre Swift is an electric running back. I mean, some people thought that when they traded for him. Some people are just learning it now. But that DeAndre Swift gives them a different gear, and that the more he's touching the ball, the better.
All right. I think the fact that it's like you've used a high round pick on a running back. I think that may come back to bite you in the end, especially because I'm going to take the best player on either team. The player who through 3 weeks is an absolute stud. Give me Jalen Carter. Okay. I know that both teams here have very good defensive tackles, but with a chance to take the arguably the best player on either team, I am very happy to do that.
Okay. So then I'm going to stick with the defensive tackles here because I had on my spreadsheet, the defensive tackles are deep, and there are 2 really good ones on Washington. It's the strength of the team. It's a matter of taste. Last year, Daron Payne was outstanding. Jonathan Allen's a 2-time Pro Bowler. Jonathan Allen has just been productive, real steady NFL player. And that is where I am going. When you look at Jonathan Allen, 9 sacks in 2021.
Very quickly, is it Jonathan Allen or is it Ellen Jonathan?
It's Jonathan Allen.
Okay.
Jonathan Allen, 9 sacks in 2021, 7.5 sacks in 2022. Scheme versatile, real good player, respected figure in the locker room around the league. I feel strong about having Jonathan Allen.
What's he ever won?
National championship in college. What's he ever won? Okay. The term ever does include college.
So why don't you just take Stetson Bennett? I don't know.
First off, Stetson Bennett's not eligible for this game.
I understand.
And second off, there's a number of players in here who have won.
Okay, well, you're going to have an issue covering my guys if I can give Jalen Hurts any time because I'm taking James Bradbury here. Okay. I think an extra delta here between the cornerbacks. You've got...
have you not seen Emmanuel Forbes play?
Yeah, you're going to end up with your boy, who's 145 pounds, but that's okay. I feel good about Darius Slay and James Bradbury. Why don't you do one more pick, and then we'll start to get to Baldy, and then we can finish this on the back end.
All right, I'm going to take Daron Payne, and I'm going to have 2 strong defensive tackles in the middle. That's the strength of Washington's roster. Payne, you saw it in his contract, big-time player for them, and I like the Allen Payne combination, and I think this is going to be a real tough test for the Eagles this weekend.
All right. Well, what if that this was a real game that you could go to? Well, if it was, you could probably buy tickets if you wanted to. You would want to see these teams in action, and if you wanted to just sort of wait until the last minute, Game Time would hook you up. Buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. They've got flash deals, last-minute tickets, easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area, images of the seat views, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, all that good stuff. And the proof is in the pudding. It's the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you're set. That's 1 extra tap than you get from Mac Jones if you're playing against him. Tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, do we have Baldy? All right, let's bring him on, ladies and gentlemen, for the second time on the PHLY Eagles podcast. Very pleased to be joined by Brian Baldinger. How are you?
Bo, Zach, it's good to be with you. I'm doing great. I'm just sitting in my film room here watching Keenan Allen torch the Vikings at this moment, but certainly turning my attention to Sunday's afternoon game at Lincoln Financial.
Can you sort of like paint the picture of the film room for us? How football guy are your surroundings in there?
I don't decorate. I don't know how to do that. Over here, when Steve Spagnuolo was out of football for a year before he went to Kansas City, he used to be here every Monday. I got his cover 3 over here on my whiteboard on this side. I've got a bunch of football sayings over there. I got the schedules up. I've got all the things I got to do on that one. It's a lot of whiteboards. Kind of draw some plays up, see some things each week that I've never seen before, kind of put them up there and kind of revisit them. So it's just it feels and smells a little bit like football here, guys.
What's the best football saying?
Slow to your know, Zach. Slow to your know. Like it's just it's really a philosophy that all linebackers share. Like the worst thing you can do is just be too fast, overrun plays. Like say, maybe like what Denver did last week when they gave up 70. They weren't slow to you know last week. They were just slow, like in every phase. And that's why one of the reasons why they gave up 70 to the Miami Dolphins.
I think when I think of slow to on the Eagles at the moment, and this is not where I was planning on starting with you, Baldy, but it feels like that's a very good description of the way that Reed Blankenship is playing right now at safety, right? I know that you have watched him. It seems like, for a second-year player who was undrafted, he sees things very clearly.
Well, his interception against Baker last week, I mean, it's a cover 2. He's an half-field safety on the other side of the field, but he really doesn't have any action over there. And so it's 3 receivers. He gets the over route coming over. Like Baker never saw him, and he came and jumped the play. But I saw the same. I saw him do it. Well, when Cleveland was scrimmaging the Eagles, I saw him pick Deshaun Watson twice in a red zone offensive drill, and he does have instincts. And look, the Eagles have struck gold with a number of free agent safeties over the year. Rodney McLeod. I mean, you go through the guys. Like, if they're hard to draft, you can sign them in free agency. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And then sometimes you just got to give guys a chance. And maybe they didn't test real well coming out of college or run as fast as you want them to run. But Reed Blankenship makes this defense better. When he isn't in there, when he was hurt, they weren't as good in the middle of the field.
Talking about a position where the Eagles seem to find something is obviously running back. DeAndre Swift is second in the league right now in rushing yards. But I'm curious from your perspective, how much of this is the way DeAndre's rushing and how much of it is that offensive line in front of him opening up holes, even against the top run defense in the league?
Yeah, it's both, Zach. It's both. DeAndre's a good back. I mean, he's quick to the hole. He's quick through the hole. He might have gotten a few runs like that in Detroit over the last few years. They've gotten better up front. But honestly, I could teach you the run game in 10 minutes. It's not complicated. They basically ran 4 plays the other day out of various formations, and they just execute. I mean, there's still nobody better in the perimeter or chasing linebackers than Jason Kelsey. Dickerson and Mulata are dominant, Lane is even playing more physical than he has played right now. And Cam Jurgens has been really good. I mean, he's going up against Vita Vea inside on Sunday, and that's one of the reasons why they've been a dominant defensive front against the run. He didn't have any problem moving them out of the way. So they were really good up front against a good defensive front. But DeAndre Swift has his skill set. And the only thing that has really ever slowed him down, Zach, going back to Georgia, was just injuries. And if he can stay, relatively injury free, I don't know if he could run for 300 yards every 2 weeks right now. I mean, I don't expect that, but he's going to be at the top of the leaderboard when the season's over if he can, keep anywhere near this pace he's at right now.
You talked about Cam Jurgens there, Baldy, and I'm curious your opinion of him through these first 3 weeks. Obviously, making the transition from center to guard, you worry about the size a little bit. It seems to me that he's obviously holding up well there, and fulfilling the Stoutland goal of making sure that everybody is sort of moving in concert with each other.
Well, I remember talking to Lane Johnson about him. Once Isaac Seumalo signed in Pittsburgh, and they were probably going to play Cam at guard. I asked him if he was concerned about just going for Brandon Brooks and Isaac Seumalo just size wise, into Cam Jurgens, who's built more like a center. And he said he wasn't concerned because of how strong he was. He thought he might be one of the strongest, if not the strongest guy on the team, just from a power standpoint. And that's what you see from him. I mean, he runs through his players. He's excellent on the move. He plays with good leverage. He did it center. He moves bodies. And that's what you've got to be able to do in the run game. There's some teams that can kind of just stretch you, like some team like maybe Miami does. They'll stretch you out and find the daylight. The Eagles they'll run that play, but they like to get physical and move the line of scrimmage. And Cam so far through 3 weeks has been able to do that.
Shifting to the passing game, the Eagles have seen a lot of blitzing through these first 3 weeks. Is that the byproduct of these defensive coordinators that they're seeing, or do you think this is how teams want to try to stop Jalen Hurts and this Eagles offense?
Well, that's what Todd Bowles has been doing, Zach, in his first 3 weeks. You watch him in the games, like he's been blitz happy. And that's kind of his MO anyways. And so, it's like the old saying, like sometimes you get the bull and sometimes the bull gets you. It can work both ways, but that's who he is. Wink Martindale, that's who he is. If you go and look at what Baltimore's doing, that's what they do. And then some teams, it's just a game planning thing, like Jim Schwartz in Cleveland. It's strictly a game planning thing. And so you got to be ready for all of it. I think teams will always play Jalen different than whatever 4 games, stretch they've studied. Like if Washington's getting ready for Philadelphia this week, they've seen Josh Dobbs, who's not bad running. They saw Josh Allen last week. They didn't seem to pay much attention to him, and he chewed him up. So I would think that this week, like they would pay a lot more attention to Jalen Hurts, his ability to either scramble or design runs, because you have to account for him. Otherwise, he's going to hurt you.
Baldy, you had the clip on your Twitter earlier this week, and everybody should obviously follow Baldy there. About the few times where Jalen is sort of bailing from the pocket still. I think this was a better game for him than we saw the first 2 weeks. But what is your level of concern there? Is there any concern, and how do you sort of see him in the offense moving forward?
Well, I'm not concerned, Bo, only because I think he recognizes it too. And it's every game, every year, it's a fine line. It's a dance. Like he stays in there and he hits Zacchaeus on the touchdown. Like he could have easily bailed on that play. He had pressure, a lot of different color. It was a dirty pocket, but he stayed in there. He took a hit from Shaq Barrett, like he got wiped out, but he delivered the ball by being patient. And then a couple of times in the first 2 games as well, like I feel like the pocket is good. And it's just a question of, okay, the back's coming to pick up a blitz like they had to do a couple times the other night. Maybe there's a little color, but here comes Lennon Dickerson to help out, and to help. And so there's just a balance between really trusting it and being patient in the pocket. Because if you stay in the pocket, you can see the whole field. As soon as you move, like he did on a couple of occasions the other day, you're either cutting the field in half or your receivers could be on the other side of the field and you have nothing and you end up just throwing the ball away. I mean, that happened in the Super Bowl to him, so I think he recognizes it. I think Brian Johnson recognizes it. I don't think anybody's going to panic about it because he makes a lot of good plays out of the pocket. But I know as an offensive lineman, playing for guys like Randall, sometimes you wish he would just stay right there and just trust that we're going to give you a good wall or a good pocket so that you can do your dirty work from there.
I think Monday's game is going to be remembered as like the Jalen Carter game from a national perspective. He looked so good in that game. Spinning this forward, is this what you're expecting on a week-to-week basis? Are you surprised by Jalen Carter's instant production, and is there more for him this season?
I'm surprised, Zach, only because typically rookie defensive linemen have to go through growing pains. I mean, you go look at Aaron Donald, his rookie year, look at them all, Chris Jones, look at all these guys that are dominant right now. And they didn't step on an NFL field and just dominate. But then there's really just, I don't know how many players in this league have the base and the power and the balance that Jalen Carter has. I mean, he's just incredibly powerful, and he's got unbelievable balance, and he can just run through big bodies. And that's what he did on the safety the other night. And then what I didn't realize is just he's a pretty advanced pass rusher, Zach. Like a lot of guys come in with that kind of power, they just want to run right through you, and that's all they got. And then they got to develop an array of moves. But you've seen an arm over, you've seen a swim, you've seen a club. Like he's got an idea about how to rush a quarterback. And so it's been, I'm not going to say meteoric rise from week 1 to week 3, but if he stays on this arc that he's on right now, he's going to be one of the better interior defensive linemen in this league real soon, if isn't already in that conversation.
What is your theory, Baldy, on why it is that usually, unlike Jalen Carter, defensive tackles tend to take so much time?
Well, because the college game is just so different, Bo, than the NFL game. I mean, nobody plays the fullback in college. Nobody runs really power football plays. A couple teams in the SEC might run real power football like you see in the NFL. Just the side, like, if Jalen Carter's going against Vanderbilt, they don't have any NFL players. If he goes up against Alabama, you're going to see some guys who are going to play in the NFL, but not all of them. Like you're just seeing, you go up against Cody Mock the other night, the guy's a legit NFL offensive guard. You go up against Tristan Wirfs and some of these guys. I mean, you're going up against much bigger, stronger players. And now you got to figure out how to beat those big, strong guys up front and the schemes. And you can get pressure, but the quarterbacks are elusive or the ball comes out fast. And so it's just, or you're getting trapped or you're getting whammed. All these things that you don't typically see in college, you're seeing the NFL. And then, okay, then how do you learn that if you have limited practice time, limited preseason reps, all that stuff that everybody's, trying to figure out? Like, it doesn't look like there's much of a learning curve for him right now.
If we can spin this forward to the Washington game this weekend, because we were talking about that before you came on, it seems just the Eagles roster is significantly better, especially offensively, than Washington's. But we also saw Washington come into Philly last year, win that game, yep, slow it down. They ran the ball on them. What are you expecting Washington to do, and what stands out about this Commanders roster?
Well, last year, Zach, it was a good point. Last year, the Eagles were 8-0, and they're rolling. And Washington comes in there, and Brian Robinson has a good game, and they convert third downs, and all the stuff they did to play keep away, and they win the game. And literally the next day, Ndamukong Suh, Linval Joseph were here. Like they said, okay, and they went from a 4-man front to a 5-man front, and they just changed their whole defense after that game. Well, they're much better. I think they're the deepest team, Zach, at defensive tackle in this league, because you've got Jordan Davis and Fletcher. You've got Marlon, and you've got, Jalen. Like, you got Milton. Like, they're loaded at defensive tackle. That's not a question now. They don't need to go out there and look for the waiver wire or who's on the street to go bolster that. They're built big inside. So, but they're better than Washington on both sides of the ball. I mean, Buffalo had 15 quarterback hits and 9 sacks last week. They destroyed them up front. They beat them from the linebacker blitzes. I mean, and Sam Howell struggled as a result. And he throws the 4 interceptions. And we hadn't seen that type of play from him in his 3 previous starts. They're just bigger, better, and better coached up front. You could put Montez Sweat and Chase Young and Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne. They're good players. I don't think they're great as a group. They can do some good things, and they can harass your quarterback. And before last week, they had 10 sacks and 20 quarterback hits. They were doing some good things to Denver and Arizona, but when they go up against a really elite offensive line like the Eagles, I don't think you'll see those kind of numbers or that type of impact.
All right, I've got one more for you, Baldy. As Zach and I are doing this draft here, would you rather have Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert, or Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, and Cam Jurgens? I know you're an offensive lineman. Would you rather have the Eagles' passing game weapons and quarterback, or the 4 of the 5 big uglies up front?
No, I'll take the uglies all day. Give me that group up front. It's an elite group, and don't leave Jason Kelce out because I don't know how he does it. I have no idea.
I should have said that Jalen Hurts and the weapons, they have Jason Kelce.
Oh, they get Kelce.
The leader.
Oh, they get Kelce in the deal. All right, I'm still taking the uglies. As good as Kelce and Jalen are, I'm still going to take the uglies because I feel like you could plug a lot of other players in at a lot of other those positions, and they'd still be really good.
My last question for you real quick. Big Saturday night for you. Duke versus Notre Dame. How do you see that game going?
It's unbelievable, Zach, honestly. I mean, college football game day is at Duke. Like, I expect Coach K to be there on the set, with that group. I mean, nobody in their wildest imagination would ever expect Duke to be in this situation 4-0 and what they've done. But, Notre Dame could have easily won that Ohio State game last week. You can't put 10 men on the field. If they play 10 men defense, then I think the Dukies are going to take them. If they just line up with 10 men, I think Duke is going to take them. Otherwise, I think Notre Dame is just too deep and too fast right now for Duke. Although, if they pull this upset off, they're going to climb into the top 10, maybe the top 5. And, I don't know. Like, Duke's never seen football like this in half a century.
Ever since you, yeah.
Yeah, way before me.
All right. Well, Baldy, thank you so much for taking the time.
For the last time, I think Duke was really good at football. Maybe when Spurrier was there for a couple of years, but you might have to go back to Sonny Jurgensen.
You can follow him on Twitter at Baldy NFL. I'm not calling it X. I'm sticking with Twitter. Baldy, thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you next week.
You got it, Bo. Take care, Zach. Enjoy the game. I'll see you on Sunday. I'll be down there this Sunday. Look forward to it.
Oh, great. Appreciate it.
See you guys.
All right. Before we move on,
I just want to clarify real quick. When I said ever since you, that was a compliment to him as a player, not an age reference to when he said they haven't been good in a half century.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I got that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just want to make sure.
I thought so. You want to text him an apology?
No, that's okay.
I think that's good. And maybe, one day they'll make a Brian Baldinger bobblehead. If they were going to do that, it would probably be from FOCO. Because FOCO is a leading manufacturer of sports and entertainment merchandise with a product line that includes apparel, accessories, toys, collectibles, novelty items, and more. It is the best officially licensed gear for all sports and fandoms. It's football and tailgating season. Overalls, hoodies, hats, sunglasses, bags, everything you need for a game. FOCO has hooked PHLY up and provided awesome pieces for our sets. FOCO always has our back for Philly sports, and they have yours too. Get the best gear around by using the link in our description for all non-presale items. Use promo code PHLY for 10% off. All right, Zach, it's over to me now as we continue the split squad draft here. And I could sort of lock in a dominance at one position, but I feel like there's not a huge difference between a couple of the options. I am going to go ahead and take what I think is a big delta, a guy that Baldy talked about. Slow until you know. Give me the milk check. Give me Reed Blankenship at safety over this group of Commanders safeties who I know that like Commanders fans really love Cameron Curl.
Yes, I was about to say that.
They get very angry for disrespect of Cameron Curl. I think Cameron Curl is just a totally fine player. It was not special.
Okay, well, I actually like a Cameron Curl.
Okay.
And I'm going to take a Cameron Curl here.
Wow, okay.
Cam with a K, that is, for those who are keeping track of our teams.
Curl with a C.
Curl with a C. So, yeah, I think Cam Curl's underrated, and I'm happy to have Cam Curl as part of Team Zach Berman.
Okay, I'm going to take the player who you said potentially is the best player on the Eagles through the first 3 weeks. I'm hoping that this will break your heart to some degree and maybe send you into a spiral as we finish this draft. Give me your boy, the computer man himself, Josh Sweat.
So what's interesting here is that in my edge rankings, I have Sweat and Sweat, and I don't know which Sweat I have ranked higher. I presume it's Josh, but Montez is a good one here. The edge rushers in this game are good. I think both teams have good edge rushers. That's why I have weighted on it, and I'm gonna go with. At some point, Hassan Reddick needs to get a sack here, but I think I'm gonna go with Chase Young.
Really?
No, you know what? No, I'm not. I'm gonna go with Hassan Reddick. I'm going to go with Hassan Reddick because I don't want to be locked into all these Commanders defensive players, and I already have their defensive line. So give me Hassan Reddick, who I drafted high last week, who very well might come out against this.
You were smoking before the show?
I drafted him high last week. No, I didn't say I was high last week.
So you drafted him when you were high.
No, I definitely did not say that, though. Against you're going to have Wiley and Leno as your tackles? Please, give me Hassan Reddick.
Well, I don't necessarily need to have them as my tackles. I've got other options. I am going to go ahead and take the better of the two Commanders edge rushers. I'm going to take Montez Sweat.
Okay.
Give me the Sweat brothers. Josh and Montez. We are going to make you sweat.
You're not going to make Landon Dick
sweat till you can't sweat no more.
You're not going to make Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata sweat.
I think Mailata will be doing a little bit of sweating.
They're good there. So I really like a Chase Young, but I think I'm going to go with the best. Oh, I was saying, I'm going to go with the best linebacker in this game. Is it Jamon?
You think it's Jamin Davis?
Jamin Davis. Who do you think's the best linebacker in this game?
I think none of them matter. I think Cody Barton is the one who's like on their field for them the most. I actually thought that Zach Cunningham played a very good game last week. Well enough that I am not worried about that position. But I'll let you make your call there.
So I will go here with. I'm gonna go with Chase Young.
Okay.
I'm gonna round out my edge rushers. Make sure you don't block me in there. And I got Hassan Reddick and Chase Young. Chase Young, former number 2 pick in the draft. I like him.
Okay. I am going to go ahead and lock in the top cornerback trio here. You haven't drafted a cornerback yet. And I don't really like this guy, but I'm going to take him just to hurt you.
Oh, please don't say who.
Give me Emmanuel Forbes.
Okay. You know what? Pick 6 Forbes. I like that, right? Emmanuel Forbes thought the toughest wide receiver he faced in college was?
Me?
No, Devontae Smith. Yes.
That would make sense.
Yeah. I like Emmanuel
Devontae
Forbes
Smith was like
draft.
a record-setting wide receiver.
Yeah,
So.
but that's actually not who I thought you were going to take there. I thought you were going to take Kendall Fuller, who I've always liked the Kendall Fuller ever since he was at
Virginia
Tech. Yeah, he was a Hokie.
Yeah.
Along with the rest of the Fullers. Corey and Kyle and
Will.
You know, well, Will is not part of their family, and Will went to Notre Dame and Roman Catholic, which
Just
is right
saying
there.
Fullers.
Which is right. I passed Roman Catholic on the way here today.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you?
Congratulations.
No, I don't think it came in
so.
that direction.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I get here early. I see the Roman Catholic students walking to school there.
Zach. We're already sort of encroaching on the line with you and the student unions of college kids. If we're moving to high schoolers, we're gonna have a real issue.
I don't know what that means. No, I just meant you see as you pass by, you see them walking.
You said you get here early so that you can watch the high school kids.
That is not at all. That is not at all what I said.
I think we're gonna have to check the tape because
I said I get here
that
early.
is certainly the way it's
No,
being
I
being
say
taken in the back.
I didn't say so. I said and. Okay, and I see them as you're driving in early,
right.
and you see them.
Wooderson over here.
Okay. So, you know what? I'm going to go with Jordan Davis to plug the middle of my defensive line here. So now I got Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne,
Yeah,
and
I think that's
Davis.
that is a pick that is a good one for you. And I probably wish that I had taken him over Emmanuel Forbes. Wasn't sure you were going to do it, but that's okay. I've still got a couple good options at defensive tackle, and now I can wait on that. So I'm going to go ahead and take It's interesting because we got to factor in the injury situations here. I'm going to go ahead and take the player on either team who is probably one of the standout guys in terms of his last name being an occupation and his first name being a name that you could definitely imagine being the name of someone who does that job, and that is Percy Butler, the commander's safety.
The backup safety? Yeah.
He's their starter.
Yeah. Him and Forrest.
Yeah, I like him better.
Okay. You liked Percy Butler at La Tech, didn't you?
What's not to like?
Athletic
His name
guy?
is Percy, and he's a butler.
Okay. So then I do not need to take a safety here. I do not need to take a corner here. I know which ones I'm going to add here. I can't take someone in the front, on the defensive front, because I'm already locked into 5 players there. I can take a center, but I can take another wide receiver here. And now, do you go with OZ or do you go with Curtis Samuel? And I'm probably going to go with...
What about your boy Jamison Crowder?
Not going to take my boy Jamison Crowder. That was a joke earlier. I like... do I go Davis here? Someone who, a first-round pick, fits my profile. First-round pick out of Kentucky. Do I go with... I will go Curtis Samuel.
Okay.
A Shil Kapadia favorite.
A Shil Kapadia favorite, no doubt. One of his favorite players in the league. You left the door open for me here, so I'm going to use my flex spot on Kendall Fuller. So now you have just a garbanzo beans secondary going up against A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So it doesn't even matter if you're going to have a good pass rush against my offensive line. We can just throw the ball up, and those guys are going to win.
Okay. So I thought you couldn't take a corner. I thought you already took 3.
Yeah, and I have a flex. I can take. I have a flex spot there. I can have 4 corners.
So why, when I literally just said you can't take a corner, why wouldn't you say yes, I can still take a corner?
Because we're playing a game against each other. I'm not gonna give you the answers to the test.
I'm not asking for the answers to the test. I mean, you're the ones who created.
You're
the
just
rules
talking through your process here. I'm not gonna step in.
Let me just pull up one thing in my notes here.
All right, I'll quickly run down the rosters while you look this up. Right now, I have Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and Jason Kelce on offense. Montez Sweat, Josh Sweat, Jalen Carter, Darius Slade, James Bradbury, Reed Blankenship, Emmanuel Forbes, Kendall Fuller, and Percy Butler on defense. Zach has Sam Howell, DeAndre Swift, Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Lane Johnson, Chase Young, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Hassan Reddick, Cameron Curl, and Jordan Davis.
I'm pretty sure that Foster is there. I'm sorry, that Forrest is their starting safety, and not Percy Butler. Percy Butler played 65% of the snaps. Okay, so they use him in that extra role. Forrest played 100% of their snaps. Barton played 100% of their snaps at linebacker, and Davis played 78% of their snaps at linebacker.
Yeah, I told you Barton was the every down guy.
Yeah, but give me is it Jamin or Jamin?
I think it's Jamin.
Jamin Davis. Got some size, some punch in the middle there. Give me Jamin Davis.
Okay. There's not a lot of spots here where we both need people, so we can start to fill this out. I think the only place where that is the case is offensive line. So I'm going to go ahead and take. I'm going to start by taking Tyler Steen, even though he has not been active yet.
Steen doesn't play for the Eagles.
And I'm just going to take him on spec.
Okay. Fair enough. Then I will fill out my corners. Or should I just give you both my corners?
Yeah, why don't you just go? I think we can. Well, you need take which center you want, and then we can just fill this out.
I'll go Nick Gates.
Okay. All right, you've got Nick Gates. Who do you want as your tight end?
As my tight end, so
you got Logan Thomas or Jack Stoll, basically.
Is Logan Thomas banged up?
He is banged up. Yeah. You get John Bates.
Not a big John Bates guy, or Turner. Not a big Turner guy. You know what? I'm gonna go Logan Thomas.
Okay, could be an empty spot.
Could be an empty spot. Like Logan Thomas coming out of Vatek as a quarterback. Watched him a lot in college, and I would also add that Tyree Jackson was compared to who? Logan Thomas.
Okay, thanks. All right, who are your corners?
My corners are my man from Montreal.
Benjamin Saint-Just.
Benjamin Saint-Just. We both share an affinity for Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
So happy to add him to the group. And
You taking Josh Jobe?
yeah, I will go Josh Jobe.
Okay, you need one more.
And man, that forward pick really messed with me, huh? So I could go with Keely Ringo, or I'm gonna go with Eli Ricks.
Wow, Eli Ricks on the board. Good for him.
Yeah.
Okay, and then your safety, you're going with Derek Forrest.
Yes.
Okay. I will go ahead and fill things out. I'm going to take. I guess I'll take Brian Robinson at running back. I don't love him necessarily, but I'll take him. I will take Olamide Zaccheaus as my third receiver. I will take Sadiq Charles at left guard. I will take. Do I want?
You know what? I'm gonna make one change if I can.
Okay.
The spot you can't make a change
Okay.
at, and that's I'm gonna change Eli Ricks to Sidney Brown
Okay.
as my slot corner.
Okay, that's fine. I will take Andrew Wiley as my right tackle, and then I guess I'll put Steen at right guard, and take Charles Leno. Not thrilled about that, but that's okay. Fletcher Cox at defensive tackle, and I'll take Cody Barton as my linebacker. So.
That's a very bow pick, Cody Barton.
Okay. Cody Barton Fink. Zach, your roster. Sam Howell, DeAndre Swift, Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Logan Thomas, Curtis Samuel, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Nick Gates, Cam Jurgens, and Lane Johnson. They're going up against my defense of Montez Sweat, Josh Sweat, Jalen Carter, Fletcher Cox, Cody Barton, Darius Slade, James Bradbury, Reed Blankenship, Emmanuel Forbes, Kendall Fuller, and Percy the Butler. On the other side of the ball, Jalen Hurts, Brian Robinson, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Olamide Zaccheaus, Jason Kelsey, Charles Leno, Sadiq Charles, Tyler Steen, and Andrew Wiley going up against Chase Young, Jonathan Allen, Dayron Payne, Hassan Reddick, Jamin Davis, Benjamin Saint-Just, Josh Jobe, Derek Forrest, Cameron Curl, Sidney Brown, and Jordan Davis. Tight matchup.
Now, the quarterback delta is even more significant than last week. So there's going to be a point here when we see Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen.
Even Matthew Stafford will make things
Matthew
interesting.
Stafford and Dak Prescott. Yeah, that Tua, that it's going to be a little different. But I got to go with I thought my team would have won last week based on the offensive firepower that I had. And I think that the offensive line, if you're giving yourself credit for the O-line last week, you got to give me some credit for the O-line this week.
Well, I'll give you credit, but we'll see how the game plays out.
We shall.
All right.
We'll talk about that tomorrow.
We'll talk about that tomorrow. We are back 2:30 tomorrow afternoon with our predictions, a little Goose Wisely, some more injury updates, maybe some whispers from the locker room that Zach has found as the intrepid reporter that he is. So we thank everybody for watching and listening today. Make sure that you are downloading and evangelizing the show to all your friends on YouTube. Hit subscribe, all that good stuff. And so for all of us here at PHLY, we thank you. And for Zach and Baldy and Bree and someone who has become familiar with Miss Pennsylvania, we thank you for watching. We'll talk to you tomorrow. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.